Something came up in workshop today, a topic, something that someone said, and I was really glad that she said it because I think that this is a common misconception of people when they're doing healing work. It's a common misconception that people are afraid that they're going to be on a pity party, that they're going to overindulge their feelings. But the truth is that God has designed you with feelings. He has feelings, and his feelings inform the decisions that he makes. He regretted that he had made humankind, that he had made mankind, and he made a decision to wipe them out, except for Noah and his family. You've been made in the image of God. It's important that you are feeling your feelings. It's important that you know that you're not God, so you don't get to do things like avenge yourself because you're told that vengeance is his. But even if you can't go and do the things that God does, execute sovereignty, for example, because you are not sovereign, you still need to process your feelings. And perhaps even all the more, because you're going to also have feelings about needing to withhold from trying to get vengeance, for example. You're going to have feelings regarding God's command to give mercy, extend mercy to your enemies, love them, pray for them, submit to his authority, submit to him for justice. Those are difficult things to do when you're not feeling your feelings. And so it's important that we are feeling and resolving our feelings because it's the only way that we could possibly be built by God. If we're just a robot and we just stuff everything down, we'll never be built by God. And as a matter of fact, it will eat at us and it will become a chink in our spiritual armor in which the devil will slither. And he will compel you and he will attack you and he will torment you with your resentments. I'm sure you all know the story. It is extremely important that we are being built by God. And if he's cleaning up our heart and making our hearts pure, then we're going to have to go through that process of that happening because our automatic default is not to go there when we've been hurt, when we've been robbed, when there's been an injustice that has occurred that has greatly affected our lives. Now, this person wanted to make sure, that was one of the things that she was concerned about. She wanted to make sure that she was not overindulging her feelings. But I want to tell you something, that people who overindulge themselves are not indulging their feelings. They're actually indulging their cognitions. They are using over-emotionality to make it look like they're in touch with their feelings, but they are not. And they're using it in order to cognitively justify a position of dependency, a position of victimization, a position of entitlement. Think about what people do in the world right now. I have depression. I have anxiety. Therefore, it's your responsibility to fix it for me, to take care of me, to pay my way through this life, to not step on my issues. Don't even touch them. Don't even cross this line. Don't you know that I'm wounded? All of us are wounded, guys. But these are the attitudes that people take. And that is not being in contact with your emotions. That's not being in contact with the design that God has given you. That's wickedness. It's unaccountability. And so I don't want any of you to think that if you do this work that you run the risk of overindulgence. No, you are engaging in personal accountability. There's no one else that you're even doing it with, so there's no way that you could run that risk unless you pop back up into your cognition and you're doing the work incorrectly. So I just wanted to dispel that myth and alleviate any concern that you might have. The people who I have dealt with, whether it was professionally, even personally, on the channel, people who were doing these things, first of all, they weren't making time to do the workshop and be supported through the work and to ask questions, which is part of personal accountability. And because they weren't doing that, I have a feeling that they were approaching the work similarly to the way that counterfeit Christianity approaches the Bible, without accountability, picking and choosing their own interpretation and the things that they're willing to do, but not taking the entire work into consideration. And so I am thinking of one person in particular who was extremely entitled and wanted to dictate to me how I was going to do things on the channel and, made a lot of accusations. Like, I'm not approachable. I don't need to be approachable because I'm not your God. God is approachable, so go and deal with this stuff with him. I'm here as a shepherd to walk you through the work and help you get the bugs out. I'm not here as a therapist to you. If that's what you want, go back to the world. I'm here as a shepherd to help you to understand. And in order for you to take responsibility, you need to hear the truth from someone. So if it hurts your feelings, you got to take that up with God. That's why I tell you, you have to discern whether what I'm doing here is of him. And if you discern that, then you'll keep going back to him and saying, hey, well, I don't like the way she's approaching things. And he will contend with you. He will talk with you. And he'll let you know if this is not for you. But I don't approach things as the world does. I'm here to help you to understand what's expected of you in personal accountability. There's no example in scripture where someone filled the role of some approachable therapist to coddle you along. And that's what that particular person was trying to get me to do. The other pitfall that I see people fall into is trying to heal themselves, using the work inappropriately, not going to God, not bringing themselves into position, thinking that they're going to somehow crack the code on healing through inner child work. And if you do that, then you're approaching it as the pagans do. You're not doing it according to the way that I'm teaching, according to biblical principles, and understanding that the purpose of the work is that you're doing your part in the covenant to examine yourself and bring yourself into position so you can truly receive God and be in relationship with him the way he has established in the covenant, in personal accountability and in submission. So I've watched people do these things, and interestingly enough, when they're not doing the work correctly, and I've called them on it, and I've told them, hey, this is the way you need to do it, those are the very people who get their feelings hurt and really think that they're above any kind of reproval. They don't have the skin for this work. They don't have the skin or the heart to actually be accountable in the work and be reproved in what they're doing incorrectly. And the bottom line is, I think in both situations is a fundamental heart issue. Fundamentally a heart issue. The first things that I tell you to do are to fast and return to God and to ask him during that fast if this is the road you should take. If you have done that and God has told you that I am of him, that this is the way, walk in it, if you actually do that, then any time that I'm saying things that are difficult for you to hear, you're going to go back to him and you're going to take it up with him because he gave you that answer. And you're going to do things like I do with God, which is, hey, wait, you told me to do this, this, and this. You said this was the way. So turn my heart, Lord. Help me to do what you've called me to do. Help me to understand what I need to do in this situation to bring my heart into what your shepherd is saying, into what you're convicting me. You're moving me to do this. If you separate from God and you're not receiving from him, or you decide to do the work and you haven't first discerned with him, that's on you. And I want to tell you something. That's idolatry. You don't go and keep seeking healing modalities, treatments. You don't do that without receiving from him first. Even if it's true, what's in your heart of having set that thing before him is idolatry. So bottom line is, the people that I've seen this not work for, it's not that this didn't work for them, because this, what I'm teaching, stands on the word of God, and it will work for anyone who actually goes to him. The people I've seen it not work for are those who are incapable of taking personal responsibility, who cannot bring their heart into what God requires because they're still attached to the promise of the world that they can abdicate control over their own lives, over their own responsibilities to a human being who is going to heal them. And it never worked for him before. I don't know why they would think it would work for him now. But they are incapable of bringing their heart there. At least for the moment, only God can bring them there. But for the moment, they are in a position of entitlement. They cannot get out of their carnality and get into the heart and spirit, and they're not receiving from God because they refuse to bring themselves into that position. And those people, by the way, will ghost you, they will attack you, they will blame you, and they will absolve themselves. It's a character issue, and character comes from the spirit that resides in you. That said, make sure that you're not one of those people. Make sure that you're not treating this work as though you're healing yourself, and you understand that you are doing this work in order to examine yourself so that you can actually submit to God and receive his building of you in your design. Get out of your flesh, into the heart and spirit. And if you do that and you truly have a heart to change, the people I've seen change, and listen, there are more people who don't than do. And that's not because the work is flawed. That's because God already told us that many are called, but few are chosen. The majority are going to reject what God has established. They're not going to want it. They're going to say, this is too much work. And they're going to go back to the vomit where nothing changes, not realizing that, it's work, but you now you're choosing to go back to the vomit that you keep dunking your head into, and nothing will ever change over there. But the person even who asked this question today, who was concerned and not wanting to overindulge her feelings and this and that, the person who asked that question, I know her heart. I have seen her heart. This is the same person who prays to God, kick my butt, right? Kick my butt. Keep me in your name. Whatever you got to do, Father, kick my butt if that's what you need to do. But keep me in your name. That's a heart for him. This person has taken reproval from me, and she has clear and good, healthy understanding. And I'll tell you why. Because God has built her heart that way. Because she discerned me. And whenever she has experienced reproval from me, she doesn't say, Carrie said so it's gospel. No, she says, I respect what Carrie says, and so I will consider what she says. She doesn't place me up as God, and then she goes back to God, and God ministers to her, and he testifies to the things that I say. That is a person who is personally accountable. That is a person who loves God, places him first, his shepherd second, and is firm and clear in what they are required to do in this covenant with Christ. That is a good heart that comes from the Spirit of God, because anything good in us comes from the Spirit of God. We don't have good in ourselves, but through him. You see the difference in character? The difference in character between someone who is entitled and blaming and accusatory and doesn't take responsibility versus someone who is able to humble themselves, consider what's being said to them, even when it's painful, even when it's embarrassing, because when people reprove you, it's going to be embarrassing and it's going to be painful, but it just might save your butt. Total difference in heart, total difference in character. That is an indication of the Spirit living in her. That's how you test the Spirit. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. I hope it alleviates any of your concerns. You will not run the risk of being on a pity pot or whatever you want to call it, as long as you are in the heart and spirit, placing God first, staying connected to his Spirit. He's going to move you, and he will testify. I don't have any doubt. I have no problem telling you, step away from me until you discern by his Spirit whether I'm from him. No problem at all. I'm not meant to replace God at all. He has appointed me as a servant who is single-minded, is not serving both God and money, is broken and lowly to do his work. Okay, so I am not at all concerned. There's no skin in the game for me here. God bless you guys.